Okay, look and see. Is it showing? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for us a few more people to come in here, so I can tell you guys what happened today. Um, Today was crazy. It was absolutely insane. I knew it was gonna be crazy because, like, it's Diddy. You know what I mean? I knew it was gonna be crazy, but I wasn't expecting for them to go crazy like that, right? Like so soon. So there were a lot of people there, a lot of bloggers and stuff like that there at the courthouse, a million different people. Still gonna kind of try to wait for a few more people to come in, and then I'll start like spilling the tea, honey. Oh my goodness. Um, the kids were there at the courthouse. All of them are extremely attractive. Every one of the kids is like very, very attractive, very, very cute. Um, so there were saying I have a slow connection. Um, there were like I said, there were a bunch of bloggers there. Tisa Tells was there. Lisa Bloom was there. Lisa Bloom is a lawyer. Gloria Allred was there. Make It Make Sense was there. Lauren LaRosa from the Breakfast Club was there. And it was just crazy. Let me see here. It's saying I have a slow connection. Okay. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Because it's saying that I have a slow connection. So can you comment if you can hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me. Oh, you do hear me. Okay. Well, from on the TV, I mean on the screen, or from the next room? From the other room. All right. So I'm just going to get started, okay? And then as people come, then, whatever. So, in the courtroom, the first row had the prosecutors as six white women prosecutors. And the defense had 9 lawyers. There were like 9 of them. Okay. In the beginning, when I got there today, they went back and forth, striking different jurors for whatever reason. They were actually supposed to finish the jury selection on Friday, but the judge was afraid that people were going to get cold feet, so they decided to wait until today to do it. Okay. So anyway, make a long story short, they went back and forth striking the jurors or whatever. So they got that done relatively quickly, maybe inside of about an hour. And then Mark Agnifilio complained that the prosecutors struck 7 out of 9 jurors, and those 7 out of 9 jurors were black. But that's not the reason why they struck them. The lawyer got up there, and gave a bunch of very, very good, reasons as to why those jurors were struck. It didn't have anything to do with race. So the judge was like, no, they're leaving or whatever. So that was that. So they had a break for about 5 minutes, and then the jury walked in, and then the judge swore them in, and the prosecution, in my opinion, the prosecution and the defense's opening statements were very, very boring and very dull and dry. I was there from like 2 a.m. in the morning. Like I was there literally at 2 a.m. Okay. And I was so tired. I was exhausted. But anyway, their opening statements were very dry. The prosecution said that one night, Diddy found out that Cassie was with another man. He grabbed a gun and went, with one of his employees and basically beat the shit out of him. And then there were people who were friends of Diddy's that were seated behind me. Now they had a few different courtrooms. I was in one. There's the main one, and there's like a couple of overflow ones. Okay. So the courtroom that I was in had a bunch of people in it, a bunch of his friends behind me. They were complaining every time the prosecution said something during the opening statement. They suck in their teeth and one of them actually walked out. And I was just like, okay, that was dumb. But anyway, so, in the opening statement, the prosecution said that during one of the freak-offs, a man literally urinated in Cassie's mouth, and she, no, not Cassie's mouth, Cassie's mouth, okay, and then she was choking or whatever, and then, Diddy threatened her to do the freak-offs. Then, so they were talking about Cassie at first. Then they started talking about Jane. So I guess it's supposed to be Jane Doe. So Diddy met her, Jane Doe, and coerced her to do freak-offs. One night she threw up and he gave her ecstasy. She threw up and he told her to clean up and get ready for the next escort type of situation. So this is what they were saying for the prosecution. This was the gist of what they were saying. I'm not going to go into every little thing that they said because you guys already know what he's accused of and stuff like that. All right. A lot of the stuff that they mentioned in the opening statements was already in the complaint. So you guys already know about that. The female, the defense attorney, one of the defense attorneys, she's a female. She gave her opening remarks. And she basically is implying that they were in a mutual, domestic violence relationship, and claims Cassie was trying to take Diddy's phone, and that's why he beat her up like that in the hallway. Okay, so that's just anyway ridiculous. But we're gonna move on. Okay, so the first witness was a police officer, a current police officer who was working in the Hotel Intercontinental at the time of the beating, okay? And he basically said that they received a call that there was a female in distress. He went up there to find out what was going on. Cassie was crouched in the corner, and Diddy was wearing colorful socks and a towel, all right? He basically said that Cassie and Diddy were talking. She wanted to leave. Diddy didn't want her to leave. The cop, he told Diddy if she wants to leave, she can. And he also noted that there was another male in the room. This is important because they've been trying to say that, again, it wasn't a freak off. They were having a domestic violence situation in the hotel room, and they were fighting, and she tried to take his phone, and that's why this whole thing happened. So the fact that there was another male in the room was a little suspicious to me. Okay. So then he also said that Diddy tried to bribe him with a stack of cash, and the security guard told him no. Now the security guard that was working at the hotel at the time, he's a current LAPD police officer. Okay. So they showed the video again. Let me tell you something. That video never gets any easier to watch. Like, it's always really, really hard to watch that video. I don't care how many times you see it. And in the courtroom, when I tell you, you could hear a pin drop, you could hear a literal pin drop in that courtroom when they played that video. It was just as horrible as the very first time that you saw it. And they actually played it a few times, So basically, so this is the thing that started to become a little bit worrisome for me. So the actual videotape existed, right, in the hotel. What the security guard said is he took a screen recording of the video at work so he could go home and show his wife, because his wife, he was like, oh, she's not going to believe this. So he took a screen recording of the video, which was, to me, was very, very inappropriate. Let me tell you something. The guy, what's his name? Brian Steele, who's Young Thug's lawyer, he's going to be a problem for the prosecution. He did a very, very good job poking holes into what that former security guard, the head of security, what he said. So basically, on the stand, the head of security said that, yeah, when he saw Cassie, she had a purple eye. And then he mentioned the fact that there was a man on the bed. He also mentioned a couple of other things. So when Brian Steele had the opportunity to cross-examine him, he pulled up the incident report, okay? He pulled up the incident report, and there wasn't anything in that incident report about any type of purple eye or anything like that. And he basically went back and forth with him and was just like, don't you think that's something that should be in an incident report? And it is something that should be in an incident report. I think he did a halfway decent job, defending himself, but it definitely did kind of poke holes into things. But I will say this is my last opinion on the first witness. Nothing. I don't care that the guy was that Brian Steele was kind of poking holes into, his testimony. Nothing got past that video. I'm sorry. People were like, wow, they were, the people in the courtroom were like, wow, he's really making good points and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you could still feel the fact that the image of Cassie getting beat in that video still stuck with people. So that was that. Child, that second witness. Ooh, listen to me. So this is where the baby oil makes its first appearance. Okay. So where she met this escort, okay? So the escort, they asked him, they said, oh, what's your name? I forgot what they said. He said his name was. They said, how old are you? So he's like, I'm 41 years old. So when he knew them, this was back in like 2012 or something like that. So he was, young, and he was handsome on that stand, okay? Handsome on that stand. He looks like he's, keeps himself together, works out and everything like that. And they asked him a couple of questions, where do you work, blah, 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 how much school did you finish and stuff like that. And, he answered those questions. And then she said, well, where did you used to work? And he said, I used to work at an escort agency, right? So basically, Cassie, and we already know this, that, Diddy used to make Cassie contact these agencies and stuff like that. So Cassie contacted the agency and said, hey, I need somebody for a bachelorette party. All right. So this guy is like a supervisor at the escort agency, but they didn't have anybody that fit the description that she was looking for. And she was looking for a black male. Okay. And we know why. So he filled in and he went to the hotel room, and he said that he knocked on the door and she opened the door. She had on a red negligee. All right. She had on a regular negligee, and she was wearing a red wig, and she was wearing high heel shoes. And she had a stack of money in her hand that was about $4,000. And she handed the $4,000 to him as soon as he walked through the door. And she said, look, there's no what you call it. She was like, yeah, there's not going to be, a bachelorette party. It's my birthday and my husband wants to do something special for me. So do you mind if, we kind of we'll just put some baby oil on each other and we'll just give each other a massage, and then we'll see, what happens. And she said, are you comfortable with that? And he said, yes. Okay. And, so they asked him, well, what did the room look like? how was it decorated? So he said there was a bunch of candles and stuff like that. And of course there was baby oil and there was Astroglide or whatever there and stuff like that. Okay. Tanya, you said it's my understanding that he was a cop and held on to the recording for 8 years, not reporting it. Diddy would have been locked up and further victims would have been saved. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. The main recording, okay, he said that when he went back to find the main recording, because one of his co-workers wanted to look at it, and he said that it wasn't there. And he said it's not uncommon that, there'll be a glitch in the system and the videos aren't there. They didn't pay too much attention to it. And he didn't care because he had the video on his phone. So he told his coworker, he was like, yeah, you could look at it on my phone or whatever. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He should be held accountable and he should have said something. That was ridiculous. Look, even when they were when they were questioning him and the lawyer asked him, hey, did you see the video prior to going to check and see what, about the disturbance with a female? A disturbance or whatever. And he said, no, I didn't look at the video. Bitch, when you finally saw the fucking video, you should have called law enforcement. Like, you literally have a crime. You witnessed a crime. You didn't say shit. So that was weird to me. Okay. And he tried to say that he didn't call law enforcement initially, even before he saw the video. He didn't call law enforcement initially because he asked her, hey, do you want me to call the cops? And she said no. Nigga, you said you saw a purple eye. She had a purple eye. She's crouched in the corner. Clearly, there was an altercation. There's a vase smashed. The room is trashed. It's like, something happened. There was an incident of some sort of domestic violence here, and you just didn't do anything. So yes, Tanya, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Okay. So he said that Diddy was present. Okay. And he asked Diddy what he did for a living, and Diddy said importing, exporting, and the whole courtroom started cracking up laughing at that. So as time went on, he and Cassie were rubbing the oil all over each other and stuff like that. And, he was talking about that, one thing led to another, and then they started to have sex with each other. And then the prosecutor said, well, what was Diddy doing? And he said Diddy was in the corner masturbating. And she asked him if protection was used, and he said, no, there was no protection used. Okay. So that's that. So they exchanged information, right? Or I don't know if they exchanged it or he gave her his number. So they said, well, did you see him again? Right? Did you see him again? Did you see her again? And he said, yes, I did see her again. And the prosecutor said, when did you see her? And he said, like later on that day. Later on that day, he saw her because she called him and said, can you please send me a picture of your penis? And he sent her a picture of his penis, and she ended up calling him back. Now, the first time they had sex with each other, it only lasted for a few minutes. And his reasoning for this was because he said that she was the most beautiful woman that he had seen thus far, I guess, in his life. So he just couldn't hold it. And he ended up coming like really, really fast or whatever. So when they called her back, she called him back later on, right? That day, like I said, she asked for the dick pic. He sent it. And then she said, hey, can you come back? And he said, sure. Because remember, she gave him $4,000 as soon as he walked through the door. Okay. So then now he came back, and this time they said, well, how long did it last? And he said, this time lasted a lot longer. It lasted at least about like 30 minutes or whatever. And then they asked him again, well, what was Diddy doing at the time? And then he said that Diddy was masturbating in the corner. And, yeah, so that was that. And then they ended up doing it again. And this time it was 4 hours. Okay. Now, they met several times and had sex with each other and had this type of setup. And she asked him, well, what would Diddy do and stuff like that? And he said that Diddy would direct things, make them role play with each other. So that she was like, role play like how? And he said that Diddy would make them pretend like they were strangers that met in an airport and shit like that. And he said that they tried that, but it didn't really work. So they kind of like didn't do that role playing scene again. Diddy used to ask him. Now this is this is going to start to get a little risque. So if you're easily triggered, or you're saved or something like that, you might want to leave the chat. You might want to exit the chat. Okay. So she said, okay, so what, did Diddy used to have any other requests and stuff like that? So he said, yes, he would say, he would tell him not to come yet. Okay. He would tell him not to come yet. And then, one time because he would say, oh, come on her or whatever. He would say, I want you to come on top of her or whatever, come wherever. And he did it. And then he was upset because he didn't come the way that he wanted him to come. And he was like, well, how do you want me to do it? And he was just like in little spurts. And then there were times that he would ask him to come inside of her. There was even a time that he asked the escort to come inside of Cassie, and he just didn't come. He just faked it, I guess, because he was fucking drained. I mean, how much fluid can you produce, right? So he just didn't. He just faked it. Don't you know that Diddy and Cassie went in the next room, and this was a common thing. He would have sex with her, and then they would go in the room for hours with each other, okay? And sometimes he would just be sitting there waiting for hours. So Diddy and Cassie go in the room, right? They go in the room. Share this video, by the way. Can you guys share this video for me, please? I would really appreciate it. They go in the room, and they come back. Don't you know Diddy went up to him and was like, are you sure you came? And he said, yeah. He was like, inside her? You sure you came inside her? And he said, yes. How did you know? Like, how could you tell that he didn't? She would probably be the one that could tell, because you can feel as a woman, you can feel when someone's ejaculating inside of you. But nigga, how do you know? How did you know? Questions that need that. Please, can someone please comment? How would Diddy know that he didn't come inside her? And he asked like a couple of times, like, are you sure? Anyway, the prosecutor asked, hey, were there any other requests of, Diddy? And he said, yeah, he used to ask me to pee on her. Right. And, pee on her and pee on different parts of her body and stuff like that. Most of the time after they had sex, they would go in the room after he's over there masturbating in the corner. He would go in the room with Cassie for hours, or sometimes they would just tell him to go home or whatever. Okay. There was a time that they had, another man join them. Okay. And this was the first time that another man joined them. And at one point when the other man was there having sex with Cassie, the prosecution asked, well, what was Cassie doing? What else was she doing? And he said, well, Cassie was being penetrated by the other person and giving Diddy a blowjob at the same time. So I don't know, but for some reason, Diddy thought that the man that was actually having sex with Cassie in that moment was looking at him. And Diddy says to the man, yo, what the fuck you looking at? And starts yelling at the man. Okay. Cassie gets up. She runs away because she knows how Diddy gives it up, right? She knows that so there's about to be some shit. So she gets up and runs, like, I guess, away, or runs into the other room. Please get down. My cat is in here doing the most. So she, she got scared, but eventually, oh, you said because it wasn't as gushy. That makes a lot of sense. And then he said he knows the taste. You said because he didn't taste the chum. He wanted it inside of him. He was like, nigga, I want it. They're used to the cream pie action. All of this makes sense. All of this makes sense. And then he said he probably tasted her. A part of this to me that was like super disturbing was the fact that they never used protection up until the time that the escort eventually started asking, hey, can we use protection? And, they said, okay. And he said he requested to see, Cassie's STD report. And he provided his, but she never provided hers. So they ended up starting to use condoms after that. Okay. That's a problem. I don't want to say stuff like on this live stream that's alleged, but I've heard things about, I've heard things that, there's a medical issue going on there, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay. But I wouldn't be surprised, especially hearing the testimony that I heard today. It's just like, you meet somebody, at an escort site, you call up the complete random stranger, and they come to your hotel room and they have sex with you, right? With no freaking condom, and they fucking come inside of you. Like, that's dangerous. And we're talking about 2013, right? Or, around that time, anytime between 2011 and 2014. I think that was the period, like a few year period that he was dealing with Cassie, right? And I don't know when PrEP came about, but I mean, was it back then? I don't know. That's just really risky behavior to me, just in general. So then the prosecution started to, get into, how long did this last or whatever? How long were you guys messing around with each other? So he said, however long it was, a year or a year and a half, whatever, 2, whatever. And then she said, well, when did it start to kind of, well, I'm not nasty, nigga. That nigga's nasty. I'm not the nasty one. Okay. So she said, well, when did it start when did you start ending it with her and stuff? And he said, well, when I couldn't perform anymore, right? He was like, I couldn't get hard, right? I couldn't get hard. And he said, well, the prosecution said, well, why couldn't you get hard? Why couldn't you perform? Now, at first I thought it was because she was taking Molly, and, they were taking drugs and stuff like that. But it wasn't that. That escort only took Molly one time. Okay. All the rest of the times he was sober and stuff like that. He only took the Molly that one time. The reason why he couldn't perform was because when they were having sex one time, they got into an argument, and he went in because, okay, so in that moment, they weren't having intercourse in that moment. They were in the middle of a freak off or whatever. She went to her computer. I guess they were like having a break or whatever. She went to her computer, and she went to go look on her computer for something. So, Diddy called her from the bathroom, from the bedroom, and said, hey, babe. And she said, oh, give me 1 minute. I'm on the computer. Diddy came back into the room and took a liquor bottle and threw at her, dragged her into the bedroom by her hair, and started slapping the shit out of her. And then I guess Diddy thought, hey, okay, I just hit her. Let's go back and fuck now. Let's go back to the freak off. So then she went back to the freak off, and he couldn't get hard. Like, he couldn't get hard because he just literally, heard her getting the shit beat out of her, and he just, I guess, didn't find that sexy. So that was that. There was another incident where he did witness him beating her, and Cassie ran and jumped into his lap on the couch. Diddy had left the hotel room. Cassie and the escort start making out with each other. And he said that Cassie wasn't a kisser. It was like a in the moment type of situation. And I think that he was basically implying that she was in a vulnerable state. She is not the type of person who likes to make out. In that moment, she was petrified, scared, and stuff like that. So they just kind of started making out with each other. And then he realized that Diddy had snuck back into the room and was looking at what's going on. And then Diddy expressed his approval and was like, yeah, I like that. I like that. And then he tried to start having sex with her again. But, Diddy was there now, and it just turned him off, and he couldn't get hard. So that was that. Okay. Let me answer some of these questions. Spill it. Okay. He wanted a taste. Let me see. He wasn't taking his medicine either. Oh yeah. So what you call it? At one point, in addition to that one Molly that he took, he did give him a Cialis one time as well. Okay. So fuck who wouldn't struggle to get hard with Diddy beating eyes staring at them. Yeah, exactly. So, so basically that was the situation. And on cross-examination, the defense lawyer was asking the escort a whole bunch of stupid questions, right? And I was trying to figure out where he was going with these like ridiculous questions that he was asking. He was getting like really, really technical. Like, okay, so she came to you came to the room, and then she opened the door, and you rubbed baby oil on you, right? And then she rubbed it on your penis, right? And I'm not making this up. She rubbed it on your penis, right? And then you were aroused, right? You were aroused. You had an erect penis, right? And like just asking all these stupid fucking questions. But basically, what he's trying to do is because the defense's whole thing is to paint Cassie as like a freaky frog, just like how Diddy is, and she was down with everything. She was down with the freak off. She was down with everything. And the two of them, yes, we did watch him beat the dog shit out of her on camera, but they go back and forth. Now, I've heard that Cassie has hit him before, but we already know the dynamic. We understand that, my mother used to say you can be with someone who brings out the best in you, and you can be with someone who brings out the absolute worst in you. Okay. So if you get stomped out 10 times and then you lash out once or twice, I'm not buying it. Cassie was 120 pounds soaking wet. You know what I mean? So please. Okay. Were any of these events recorded? Malik, what events are you talking about? Are you talking about the freak offs? So this is what the defense lawyer is trying to do. Okay. So it pretty much ended there. He said that he was going to go until 5:00 because they had a break, and the judge asked him, well, how long do you think it's going to take for you to cross-examine him? He was like, oh, I think I'm going to be going all the way till the end of the day. So he said, okay. So we were hoping that he was going to be finished, before 5:00, but it didn't happen. And Judge Subramanian, he's on his shit. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's very fair. From what I can see, he's very, very fair. And he's prompt as hell, because when 5:00 hit, he said, it's 5:00. Are you finished, or do you want to start again tomorrow? And the lawyer said, no, we're going to start again tomorrow. So that was that. So that was the end of that. Now, I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about what happened, what I saw? Does anybody have any questions? In the beginning of the video, I talked about the people who were there. There were a lot of bloggers there. A lot of celebrities were there. Lauren LaRosa from The Breakfast Club was there. Armand Wiggins was there. I got there at 2 a.m., okay? I got there. I had a blanket or whatever. I went to go sit on the floor. The line was very, very long. A lot of people there. When I went to go sit on the floor, about 20 minutes later, a lift pulled up right in front, and Armand Wiggins hopped out of the lift, and he gave me like a real, look like he was just not really in a good mood, okay? And he looked at me and kind of like just went and laid down. He had like a little blanket, situation, and he went to go lay down. But eventually we all started talking, and then I told him, I said, hey, I didn't want to bother you, but I do watch your show and stuff. So we ended up talking, and he turned out to be super friendly. He hugged me a bunch of times, and he was just super friendly and very, very nice. And he smelled very good, by the way. Okay. Yeah. Oh no, there, actually, yes, there are actually recordings. The escort that I'm talking about. So because the prosecutor asked, are any of these events recorded? And he said, yes. And he said, well, she said, who was doing the recording? And, the escort said Diddy was doing the recording. And she said, what kind of a device was he doing the recording on? And he said that he was doing it on his motherfucking iPhone, bitch. Okay, so we know that Diddy likes to save things. I'm pretty sure that he, this trial is going to go on for 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, we're literally just in the beginning. Okay, we have days and days and days of testimony. Word on the street is Cassie is going to be there tomorrow. I'm going to be there tomorrow again. I can't go Wednesday and I can't go Thursday. I'll be there on Friday. I'm definitely going there tomorrow. Definitely, 100%. So word on the street, she's going to be there tomorrow. The reason why I think there's a good chance why she might be there tomorrow is because her husband was there today. Her husband was there today. So I feel like he thought there might be a chance that they might have called her today. I was speaking with several lawyers that were there. I mean, several members of the press that were there. And they were saying that she's supposed to be the third witness. So we saw 2 witnesses today. Okay. So, word on the street that she's going to be the next witness. And I think that she's probably going to be on the stand for at least a couple of days. This is just, it's not going to be, you know what I mean? Because today took like the whole day just for the escort and the guy who the security guard from the freaking hotel. So I think that she's definitely going to be on the stand for quite some time. So some other people that I saw there were lots of news people that like local news people here in New York that work for like channel ABC News and, just like a bunch of people. Lisa Bloom was there and her mom, Gloria Allred, was there. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but they're very popular, very prominent lawyers. Gloria Allred is famous for suing people for sexual assault, and her daughter, that the apple hasn't fallen too far from the motherfucking tree because she be out here doing that same shit. But they were very, very friendly. They were very, very nice, like super, super friendly. And there were a lot of people in the courtroom during breaks and whatnot, talking with them, asking them questions, and they were very engaging and super duper friendly. This guy named Make It Make Sense, he's another blogger. He was there. He was super nice, very, very handsome, real pretty teeth. Like, he's a very, very handsome dude in person. Quincy was there. All the kids were there. The mom was there. I saw all the kids very, very close up. Because at one point when we came back from the break, we all have to come in and, we have to take all our clothing, and let them look through all our stuff or whatever. And all the kids were there and stuff like that. And I was in the elevator with his mom. And I told her, I said, hey, the last time I saw you was 20 years ago, right? And she said, really? And I said, yeah, the last time I saw you was 20 years ago. And I said, it was at Justin's. And she said, Justin's. And she said, New York or Atlanta? And I said, New York. And I said, my friends and I used to go there all the time, right? The wings were really delicious. And we used to go there all the time. And I said, every time we went, you used to come up to my friends and I and shake our hands and say, hi, my name is Janice Combs. And she started laughing. She looks fantastic. She looks like straight cold money, like impeccable, very slender, a lot more slender than she used to be. She might be stressed. I don't know. Her clothing was gorgeous. Her skin is very, very good. She looks great for her age. The wig was giving, Party City a little bit, how her wigs are, which always was a little confusing to me because she's, so well off. But hey, but everything other than that, she looked amazing. She looked really, really nice. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's all I'll say about that. A lot of people say that she's, part of the reason why he's the way he is and stuff like that. I don't know, I don't know. So, but she was very, very friendly. And all of the kids were all wearing black. The whole family, everybody was wearing black. And they were so handsome. The girls are so beautiful, gorgeous, pretty skin, looks just like mommy. Okay. The Quincy, he's very, very handsome too. The Christian Combs, he is gorgeous. He is very, very, very handsome. All the kids are very, very, very good looking, and they all looked like money. Like they were all impeccably dressed. Okay. Earlier on in the video, I said some stuff, so I'm just going to go back and say a couple more things and then I'll end it. The first row of prosecutors, there was the six-pack of white women. Remember, the guy, this is what the guy referred to the prosecution as a six-pack of white women. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but this is what this guy referred to them as. I forgot what his name is. He's the father of one of the defense attorneys, and he's there sort of kind of, I guess, advising them or whatever. And he went on a podcast and said that it was a six-pack of white women. Okay. So he was admonished by the judge because he has a podcast that he's on with the guy from TMZ, right? So he said this on TMZ. So the judge admonished him. This was a couple of days ago. And the judge said, look, you're here, you're speaking with the lawyers, and then you're going to go on TMZ and say, hey, that the prosecution is a six-pack of white women. And he said, in what, part of the country, anywhere on the planet would that be acceptable? Would that be, acceptable? Would that be appropriate? And they were kind of going back and forth. And he said, I'm going to be watching your podcast. So he said, well, fine. And I hope you subscribe to the podcast. And the judge went back and was just like, yeah, I'm going to be watching. Like, don't get cute. Okay. So, but there are six white women that are the prosecution. The second and third row are the defense. There are 9 of them. 9 of them. Okay. And yeah, that's about it. There were a bunch of other people that were there, a bunch of other celebrities that were there. And like I said, I'm going to be there tomorrow. Go on and share this video, please. I would really appreciate it. Okay. I'll be there tomorrow. I got there today at about 2 a.m. I'm going to be there. Mark Garagos. Yes, exactly. Mark Garagos. That's the one who said that went on TMZ podcast. Is the guy from Harry Levin. It's called Two Angry Black Men. Two Angry Black Men, child. Two Angry Men. That's the name of the podcast. Two Angry Men. I guess it's a play on 12 Angry Men. That book where they were deliberating over a murder case, and I think they made a movie out of it as well. So anyway, so that's it. Okay. Is that a trial of my peers? Hi, Alicia. You talking about on the Diddy trial? I don't know the makeup of the jury because I was in one of the overflow rooms. Okay. So I was watching it, but the camera is fixed on one part of the thing at a time. I did see Diddy. Okay. If you want to know how Diddy looks, I'll tell you really quickly. I believe that they have really grossly exaggerated the way that Diddy looks. Yes, his hair is gray. Yes, it is. He's clean shaven or whatever. His hair is gray. Diddy, to me, looks pretty much the same. They had me really feeling like the way people were talking, like it was giving, Jack Skellington, bitch, from The Nightmare Before Christmas, like, real fucking skinny, scrawny. No, honey, he looks like he lost a couple of pounds, right? But he still has the same walk, the same swagger. He doesn't seem like, he doesn't seem, like he's having any type of problems or whatever. His left knee, looks like it might, be a little stiff from time to time, but he's not limping or anything like that. And he looks just fine to me. He was wearing, like an ivory. It's either an ivory or like an off-white colored sweater with like a white shirt underneath it, and just looked real casual. They let him wear his clothing and stuff like that, as opposed to wearing the orange jumpsuit, which was good of them, nice of them, or whatever. And he does his usual thing when his family comes in. He turns around and kind of like says hi, puts his hand together, like he has a great rapport with the lawyers and stuff like that, and they're definitely conversing with each other and conferring with each other and stuff like that. It was interesting to see his body language when some of the more salacious and just really like nasty testimony, they were talking about things. It was interesting to see him just sitting there watching, and it was very, very awkward for us, and it was awkward for me even as a grown woman, who's seen a few things. Okay. Pause. it was uncomfortable for me to sit there and listen to that testimony. Can you imagine what it was like for those young kids to be sitting there? You know what I mean? Listening to that. Anyway, like I said, I'll be there tomorrow. You said a jury pardon. I'm still not understanding what you're asking me. If you're asking me if I don't know what you are asking me here. If you think that the jury will pardon him, or I don't. I'm gonna go ahead and give you my thoughts very early on, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. There are too many things that he is accused of. There are too many. There are too many counts. You understand what I'm saying? And too much of that is provable for me to think that he's going to skate on every count. Do I think that there's a high, likelihood or probability that he will not be found not guilty on some of the charges? Yes, I do think that there is a chance, but it's still very early on. Do I think that he's going to just be found not guilty? Absolutely not. Definitely not. Okay. Do I think that there's a chance of a mistrial? Yes, I think there's always going to be a chance of a mistrial in high profile cases like this, because Judge Subramanian is letting the people go home at night. And I think that he was just doing that as a courtesy and not having them sequestered, because the case is going to be 6 to 8 weeks long, if not longer. But you run the risk of all kinds of things happening. This is a super high profile case. He admonished everybody in the beginning. He was like, hey, don't talk about it to anybody, this, that, and the third. What? Come on. So if we even find out that there was even one sentence by anyone said to anybody, you know what I mean? One person on that jury, they're going to get rid of that person, and then they're going to, or it's just, there's a high chance of a mistrial. You understand what I'm saying? So we'll see what happens. But do I think he's just going to be found not guilty and that's it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I'm not sure of the makeup of the jury. I can find that out, and I'll make a post in a little bit and get back to you. But like I said, I was in an overflow room. So there's pros and cons to being in the actual courtroom, and pros and cons to being in the overflow room. The pro of being in the actual courtroom is that you're literally sitting in there with them, right? Which is great and fine and stuff like that. But the con is you can't really see shit. Like, you're literally looking at the back of people's heads. So unless Diddy turns around and looks at you, or unless somebody turns around and looks at you, you can't see their face. But when you're in the overflow room, there's a huge monitor there. So you can literally see everybody. You can see everything at once. Okay. The con, you're not in there with them. I don't care. I'd rather be in the overflow room. I could see everything a lot better. Now, in the overflow room, when the person is testifying, the camera is just fixed on the person that's testifying. You understand what I'm saying? And I would assume that it's a jury of his peers. Earlier on in the live, I did mention that Mark Agnifilio complained that seven of the 9 judges that the prosecutors were trying to strike, right, were black. And he said that he feels like that's part of a pattern. And the prosecution basically shut that down and gave like a whole bunch of good reasons as to why, there were people who they struck down. And she really did give like great reasons, right? There was one person who, was arrested, and they had this, situation with the police, and, they weren't forthcoming with it. And there was another person who like literally went to school with Diddy, you know what I mean? Or went to his school. And like, there were just a bunch of people that they just had no business being on the jury. Okay. So that was that. Were they referring to him as Diddy or as, no, they were referring to him by his government. They were referring to him as Sean Combs. And they were referring to Cassie as either Cassie or Cassandra Ventura, but most of the time they would refer to her as Cassie. And one thing I'll definitely say about this case is the prosecution and the defense, while they are vigorously, doing what they're supposed to do, They're very respectful towards each other, right? I don't get that there's like, we'll see what happens later on, child, okay? But for right now, they seem to be very, very courteous to one another and, very respectful of one another. And yeah, the judge, like I said, the judge is doing his thing. He seems very, very fair. It doesn't seem like he's leaning one way or another. So we'll see. Brian Still, I said earlier on in the thread, in the live, I don't know if everybody here, heard me, but Brian Still is really doing his thing. He's really, really, really good. He's going to be a problem. So they're going to have to watch him. Does anybody else have any questions before I end the live? And please make sure that you share this. I would appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if my connection is a little on the slow side. I know it was saying that it was a little slow before, so I don't know if how were his kids reacting to this, child? They were definitely the sons were clearly bothered. You know what I mean? And there were times when they would discuss certain things, and the son would say something to one of his siblings, and you could tell that they were definitely disturbed. Now the girls seemed fine, the mother seemed fine. The sons definitely were visibly disturbed at some of the things that they were hearing. Does anybody else have any other questions about stuff that happened today? How was his appearance? So what I was saying earlier is he doesn't look as bad as people to me. I mean, I was watching him on a monitor, but like I went to go look at the monitor like real closely so I could like really get a good look at him. And he does not look as bad as people are saying. His hair is white. Okay. And like, I don't know if that's like a big thing for people. Like he's 56 years old. So I don't know what people think. I mean, there's no Beijing or Bijan, whatever the hell, niggas used to color their shit. They don't have that in the jail. So obviously his hair is going to turn white. He himself doesn't look that bad to me. He doesn't look super skinny or anything like that. He looks all right. He doesn't look great, but he doesn't look as bad as people are, saying that he looks. Okay. So I'm going to wrap it up now. If nobody else has any more questions, I'm going to wrap it up now. Like I said, I'm going tomorrow. I think there's a good chance that Cassie might testify tomorrow. I think there's a good chance I'll be there tomorrow. Hopefully Friday. I can't go Wednesday and Thursday, but I'll be there tomorrow, and I will go live tomorrow. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to go live, like right after. Actually, no, I can't do that. I'm going to have to wait. Maybe I'll try to go live right after, right before I get on the train, because I have to go to work tomorrow. So, but we'll see. Either way, I will be going live at some point tomorrow. Okay. I know that other people are going live on YouTube and stuff like that, but this is me. Okay. Yes. Diddy is 56 years old. He's 56 years old. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share the video. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm a little scared. I'm a little apprehensive. What time do people have to be at the courthouse to get in? So I got there at 2 a.m. and I was out there for a long time, but I was able to get in, and I was like number 55 on the line. I mean, yeah, I was like 55 on the line. So that means there were 54 other people in line before me, and I got there at 2 a.m. However, there are people that got there later than me, and as far as I know, most people were able to get in. There was even somebody who got there at 9 a.m., and he was still able to get in. I would not risk getting there at 9 o'clock if you're planning to go down to the courthouse. I would not risk getting there at 9 o'clock, okay? Also, keep in mind that you can't have any cameras or any electronic devices. So that goes for your smartwatch, your watch, your anything, your phone, your earbuds, your tablet, your laptop. All that stuff has to stay downstairs. And you could just bring your notepad or something up if you want to take notes or whatever. And you can bring food. They let you bring food. But, I mean, you're not going to be in the courthouse, like, eating like that. But you are allowed to bring food in there, and you can bring like a water bottle or water or something like that. You can definitely do that. Okay. So I'm going to end the live now, and I will I'm going to go live again tomorrow. It'll probably be more closer towards 8 o'clock. Okay. But I definitely will be going live tomorrow. And I will definitely be giving y'all the tea. All right. Talk to you later. Thank you so much.